I am absolutely terrified of climate change. Hi, good morning, welcome to my channel. I'm Kaylin May. If you are new around here, I make videos mostly about books, but also sometimes about food and just life in general. And I'd really appreciate it if you joined my little community by subscribing or just by commenting, leaving a little note of your thoughts, or finding me on Instagram or Goodreads or Twitter and chatting with me there. I've been going a little stir crazy in my house, and so it's been so lovely to talk to you guys. So I really appreciated all the kind words, the recommendations. Let's get into this video. So this video is going to be in honor of Earth Day, which was this Wednesday, the 22nd of April. And I wanted to talk about a couple of things. So this is an unhaul video, a book unhaul, and then I wanted to share some recommendations for books about climate change or in relation to the climate crisis, because I think that that's one really big thing we can do in honor of the earth, is to learn more about this existential threat. So first, let's talk unhaul. All of the books I'm actually going to be sending to my friends and family. I've thought through who might appreciate what book and or books, and I want to send them out to these people. I am aspiring to get into a little bit more of a circular economy with what I do, and one thing I think of is, should these books just sit on my bookshelf if I'm never going to read them again, just because it makes me feel good to have a bunch of books on my bookshelf? Or can I give them new life by sending them out to the people that I love? These books served me, and now maybe they can serve someone else. And often these books are books I've actually gotten from people, either friends or my mom usually. So they're already in their second iteration of being read, and so I want to keep continuing to pass the torch. I do want to take you through the books that I am going to be gifting, and I'll tell you who they're going to. So the first set of books I'll tell you about are what I'm sending my mother, especially since I have gotten so many books from her. So the first book I'm sending my mom is Squeezed: Why Families Can't Afford America, and I read this during the Stay Home Reading Rush, so if you want to hear my thoughts on it, you can. I think it was a little different than I was anticipating it was going to be, but at least gives a shared vocabulary for us to start having conversations about like why, for example, I have a master's degree and I'm still struggling to pay my rent at 27. So anyway, this other book I got at a bookshop, and I think I originally got it to send my mother, and I forgot. And I read it a while ago. It's called What I Told My Daughter, and it's lessons from leaders on raising the next generation of empowered women. It's counsel and advice they've given their daughters, and I read it and I really liked it, and I figured I would give it to my mom. It's funny, it feels like something maybe my mom would give me or a mother would give their daughter, but I read it and I liked it and I want to give it to my mom. So those two books are going to be heading to my mother. Then I have a set of books I'm going to be sending to Ella, who is one of my oldest friends. She and I actually met in preschool, and she and I have managed to stay friends for almost 25 years. The first book I'm gonna give her is Where the Crawdads Sing. If you've watched any other video I've made, basically, you've heard me sing the praises of this book. I loved it, I thought it was really beautiful, and I thought the descriptions of nature were really beautiful, and something that Ella and I used to do a lot growing up were hike and backpack and camp and adventure, and so I just think that she would really like this one. I also already told her about it, so I want to make sure I send it to her. The second book I'm going to send her is Major Pettigrew's Last Stand. This is a very sweet book. I don't think I've actually talked about it on the channel, so I finished this recently. I'll talk more about it in my April wrap-up, but I liked the way that it was written. It was very much in the style of like a Jane Austen novel, and I know Ella is somebody who likes to read a slow burn English read, so I'm gonna send it to Ella, also because it's heartwarming and it's sweet and it's easy to get through. So I think she'll like it. And then the last book, I don't actually know if she's read this or not, so I'm gonna double check with her before I send it, is The Sleepwalker's Guide to Dancing by Mira Jacob. And I got this book, surprise, surprise, from my mom The thing about it that's very cool is that there's parts of it that take place in Albuquerque, which is our hometown. And I think it's written by somebody who went to the school that Ella went, or it describes the school that Ella went to in Albuquerque. For high school. So I read it. I actually really liked it. I went into reading it because of the Albuquerque component, but then I ended up being very moved by the storyline. So these 3 books are going to Ella. Okay, next we have my friend Iris. This is her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. She lent it to me a year ago. I finally got through it during the reading rush. I loved it. It made me cry. It made me think. It made me grow as a person. So I'm returning this book to her. Then I'm going to be giving her The Time in Between, which is a novel that I reviewed, I think, in my quarantine book stack video. It's beautiful. She and I were talking about, she's reading a book series that takes place in Havana, and there are certain similarities about the experience we had each reading those books, so I wanted to get this to her. And then the last book I'm giving her is The Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet, which I just finished a couple days ago, and it is by Jamie Ford. It's a novel about a Japanese American girl who gets interned during World War II, and sort of this sweet young romance she shares with a Chinese American boy who they both lived in Seattle. And it flashes between 1942 and sort of tells that story and 1986. And I just thought it was lovely. It was moving. The descriptions of the 1940s were great. But another reason I wanted to give this to Iris is because we both worked on a project for an event in Little Tokyo this spring. And it was incredibly moving to learn more, just sort of by proxy of working with the Japanese American National Museum, to learn a little bit more about the internment. And there's a building in downtown LA where Japanese Americans stored a lot of their belongings when they were interned. And this book takes place, it starts with the Panama Hotel in Seattle as a location in the 1980s of them unearthing a lot of Japanese American belongings. And so it just reminded me of that project a little bit. And I just thought that, you know, Iris would really enjoy this read, and it's a nice reminder of the work we did together on one of our favorite projects. So then I have my friend Esther, who lent me the book Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, and I also have already reviewed this, I think, on YouTube, but I'm gonna return this book to her, as well as The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins is in a similar vein. It's sort of a thriller, I don't know, female protagonist, not a perfect person, really, yeah, flawed main character. And so I think if she hasn't already read it, she'll really like it. So I'm gonna send this to her. This I read years ago, but it's just been sitting on my bookshelf, so I figured I'd send that out. And then Esther's one of my favorite people, and she is the perfect person to appreciate Everyday Enchantments, partially because she also worked at the place that the woman who wrote this worked. She's also a New Mexican, so she can love those New Mexico moments as much as I did. And she's got just the right amount of new agey, I think, to really love this book. So I'm gonna send this to Esther. So we got those, okay. Lastly, is my friend Alisa, who gave me these absolutely gorgeous sunflowers in honor of a Catalan holiday, which is Sant Jordi. So people send each other flowers and books on that day. And so that was yesterday. So Alisa got these beautiful flowers delivered to me, and then also sent me some books in the mail. Alisa is probably one of the most thoughtful people I've ever encountered. She writes me handwritten letters and sends me these beautiful flowers, and so much love. I am just unbelievably lucky when it comes to friends. It's next level. But she has been reading works by authors of color. So the 2 books I'm giving her fit that. And I don't know if she's read this yet. So again, I'm double checking both of these. But Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. And this is a beautiful book. I think it's young adult, but it really follows this beautiful friendship by two people who are very different, but also have a lot in common. I don't even want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil any of it, but I loved this book. I read it so quickly. It was very, very sweet. So this book, and then also The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. And this book I finished last week. It was part of my quarantine reading list. It was great. It was really brutal. It was hard to read. It deals with slavery, which is never an easy thing, but it's very creative in the sense that it takes the idea of the Underground Railroad and and imagines what it would be as an actual physical railroad. And in some ways, I wish that he had spun that idea further and made it a little more fantastical, but it still is, it's heartbreaking, and I was very stressed reading it. I had to know what happened. It follows one woman's attempt at freedom, her escape towards freedom, following the Underground Railroad. And the entire time, I didn't know if she was gonna make it. It literally to the very last page, I wasn't sure. And in a lot of ways, I'm still not sure. But yeah, it was heartbreaking, and it was, I think people have mixed feelings about his writing style. I loved his writing style, so I really enjoyed it, and I think that she will too. So if she hasn't read these books, again, if these people have read these books, I'm not gonna send them, but I'll find different ones. But those are my stack of books. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 books I'm unhauling. It was 50 years of Earth Day the other day, so I want to tell you about these books. These are the books that I'm going to read about climate change this year, that I am committing myself to putting in my TBR. The first book that I really want to read is by Naomi Klein, and it's called This Changes Everything: Capitalism versus the Climate. And I think that might be my #1 book that I want to read right now. And so this book is a nonfiction book. It's reframing the idea about, this is not about carbon, this is about capitalism. That this is, we've got a failed economic system, and we have the potential to build something radically better. So she's actually also written The Shock Doctrine, which I really want to read as well. So Naomi Klein is the first one. The next book I really want to read is Braiding Sweetgrass: Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a botanist, and she embraces indigenous teachings that consider plants and animals to be our oldest teachers. So she brings together the lenses of knowledge, of scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge, to take us on a journey that is every bit as mythic and scientific as sacred, and as historical, as clever as it is wise. So she draws on her life as an indigenous scientist, a mother, and a woman, and she shows how other living beings offer us gifts and lessons, even if we've forgotten to hear their voices. And I think when we're talking climate change, we have to be listening to indigenous voices. And so she is definitely someone on my list. Those two books came through Leah Payne's Instagram, which I will put down below. She has a whole series of books right now, but those are two books that she recommended. I want to read What We Know About Climate Change by Carrie Emanuel. This is a basic science of global warming. This is like a climate change 101. What we know about climate change. This book was in a slew of offerings from the New York Times books section. They did a series of books in honor of Earth Day's 50th anniversary, or This is the Year You're Gonna Read a Book About Climate Change, I think is the title of their article. So I'll link that below. This was one of their suggestions, and I'm gonna take them up on it. They also suggested The End of Nature by Bill McKibben, The Sixth Extinction and Unnatural History by Elizabeth Colbert. I don't know, that one might trigger my anxiety a little bit, but I do feel like I need to read it. Then I also want to read Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. Oh, The Water Will Come: Rising Seas, Sinking Cities, and the Remaking of the Civilized World by Jeff Goodell. I live on a coastal city. I am drawn to coastal cities. I've lived in Boston. I've lived in Los Angeles. I want to live potentially in other coastal cities. This is about what's going to happen potentially if we don't, change our course. Oh, I also want to read Losing Earth: A Recent History by Nathaniel Rich. This is following who knew what, when, and where. And so it talks about the birth of climate denialism, the genesis of the fossil fuels industry's coordinated effort to thwart climate policy, misinformation, propaganda, and political influence. This book is going to piss me off, I think, because of its subject matter, but I think it's important, as well as Windfall: The Booming Business of Global Warming, which is like the follow the money idea of this. There are some fiction books that I think I want to read that talk about climate change, or that are like vaguely related. One is the Mad Adam trilogy by Margaret Atwood, and one is The Fifth Season, which is the part of Broken Earth, and this is N.K. Jemisin. Then The Overstory by Richard Powers. Oh, there was another book that got recommended. This is another Leah Payne book. Drawdown: The Most Comprehensive Plan Ever Proposed to Roll Back Global Warming, and it's edited by Paul Hawken. And this book is the 100 most substantive solutions to reverse global warming, based on meticulous research by leading scientists and policymakers around the world. So I want a little bit of like, what are the plans? What's the history? Who are the players who have either, illuminated new things for us, or purposely and maliciously obscured things? Where is the money trail going? And then some novels to just broaden my mind. I think Flight Behavior by Barbara Kingsolver. I like her writing, so I'd probably read that. That's also on there. I think I want to cover all of my bases. So the thing is I have a book list on Goodreads. It's called TR Earth Day, and you can check it out. There are a couple more I didn't mention. Honorable mention: Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, the big mama that started it all. The Hidden Life of Trees: What They Feel, How They Communicate. I'm gonna link this list down below. If you're interested, I urge you to at least pick one. It's time to start thinking about it. It's time to start talking about it. I mean, it's way past time for each of those. If this is something you guys are interested in hearing about more, I might take you along a little bit on my journey of not only reading and learning more, but implementing more actions into my life beyond what I already do. And during this great pause, during this really hard time, there's a chance to reevaluate systems that are failing us. They're failing us now, during this pandemic, and they're failing us on this global catastrophic scale, and it's time to start thinking about what can we do about it? What do I need to learn? What can I as one person do? And what do I need to mobilize? How do I think about things beyond myself? What perspectives can I get that are beyond myself? So again, I think that's really important and why I'm trying to read a variety of books about it. So if you have any suggestions that I've missed, please comment at them. If this is something that also interests you, maybe I'll start a book club of climate change books and we'll read one a month. I would love to do that actually. So yes, if this is something that also interests you, let me know. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about it. Hopefully it was interesting. Happy Earth Day. I hope you got outside, even if it was just for a moment. Please, if you have a moment, like, subscribe, put on the little bell for notifications, leave me a comment or two. I always respond. Find me on Instagram or Twitter or Goodreads. Getting to 50 subscribers is so humbling, and I want to grow this community so I can continue to get to know you all. So thank you so much. I hope everyone in your life is safe and well. Don't be too hard on yourself at this time. We're all just doing the best we can. So be well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.